Good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce our MC for tonight's event. We have with us today two amazingly talented future stars, Anna Samuel and Shruti Dayalan. Anna is a second year student at the University of Toronto in the Human Biology program and a Dean's List scholar. She is passionate about molecular genetics and hopes to pursue a career in medicine that strikes a balance between direct patient care and research. She's honored to be your MC for this International Women's Day event and is looking forward to an exciting show. Shruti Dayalan is a grade 11 student at Bishop Reading Secondary School. She's a passionate leader who aspires to pursue a career in medicine. She's a member of Cohort 10 for the Education Minister's Student Advisory Council and regional champion twice in the Spelling Bee of Canada. She is very excited and privileged to host this International Women's Day event for Dancing Damsels. Over to you, Anna and Shruti.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Samuel, and along with my co-host, Shruti Dayalan, I would like to invite you all viewers to be a part of our Dancing Damsels 2022 International Women's Day virtual celebrations. Tonight, we have a list of highly accomplished and multi-talented women, and we would like to take the time and the opportunity to honor each and every one of them for their remarkable contributions in various fields.
First of all, happy International Women's Day, everyone. In recognition of the IWD virtual celebrations, we are pleased to inform you that we have received video messages and virtual greetings from honorable dignitaries from our Canadian government to the Dancing Damsels organization. And most importantly, congratulatory messages to each and every awardee tonight.
Next, Dancing Damsels is so honored and happy to invite Member of Parliament in the House of Commons of Canada for Scarborough Centre, MP Salma Zahid, who is actually joining us live today in honor of International Women's Day and to congratulate all of the IWD 2022 award winners. A warm welcome to MP Salma Zahid.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. Thanks to both the MCs. And first of all, before I begin, a big thank you to Dancing Damsels for organizing the celebration of International Women's Day every year. I am honored that Dancing Damsel is doing important work in my great riding of Scarborough Centre. So it's heartwarming to see many friends today, some new and some old faces at your annual International Women's Day celebration. Thank you for coming together to celebrate women and to make sure that we recognize what all women have done in our lives. This year's theme by the Government of Canada for International Women's Day is Woman Inspiring Woman. Come to think of it, where else would a woman gain inspiration to achieve her dreams and goals she has set for herself? As Maya Angelou said, each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it and possibly without claiming it, she stands up for all women. This year's theme invites us to draw spotlight onto the accomplishments of women who have demonstrated leadership in achieving a future of equal opportunities for all women. In my life, my inspiration has always come from my mother, through the way she lived her life, shared her love and labor, and made sure that my father, myself, and my siblings, she was always there as our guiding light. She put herself after her family always and made sure that she creates environment in the house where we can all achieve our dreams. When I was in a doubt or afraid, I always turned to my mother for strength and determination. All those talks which she used to have when I was young guide me every day. And whenever I face any problem, even now, I think about how my mother would have dealt it if she was in my shoes. Here in Canada, we have no shortage of women heroes. In the 1960s, Doris Anderson pushed for the creation of Royal Commission on the Status of Women. She worked for getting equality rights included in our Charter of Rights and Freedom. Kenujak Ashwak is an artist. She was a role model and mentor for many Inuit women and Inuit artists. Kenujak's famous work called The Enacted Owl was used in a postage stamp in 1970 to mark the centennial of the Northwest Territories. In 1946, Viola Desmond challenged segregation practices in Nova Scotia. She stood up for her rights and for her racial equality. Here in Scarborough, Filipina novelist Catherine Hernandez has championed the plight of marginalized and multicultural families through her writing. Catherine's novel, Scarborough, has recently been made into a movie of the same name. It has given voice to countless immigrants and marginalized individuals trying to live in the city. The Government of Canada recognizes that women and girls have been disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Many marginalized groups, including Indigenous, Black, and racialized women, as well as women living with disabilities and those who are members of the LGBTQ2 plus communities. Our government is committed to build a more inclusive future for women and girls across the country. From building a national $10 a day early learning and childcare system to launching the first ever task force on women in the economy, our government will continue to support women as we pursue an economic recovery that works for everyone. The experts have said that there is no recovery possible after this pandemic until there is a she recovery. The federal government has just announced the launch of the Women Entrepreneurship Loan Fund. This fund is the next phase of the $6 billion Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. It will allocate funds to not for profit organizations with existing loans geared towards women entrepreneurship. Through the fund, women entrepreneurs will be able to access loans of up to $50,000. Hopefully, through these efforts and future initiatives, we can support the growth and success future women heroes. With that, I thank Dancing Damsels again and look forward to hearing from amazing women throughout this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your inspiring and kind words, MP Salma Zahid. Our sincere thanks for the special mention and acknowledgement about Dancing Damsel's invaluable contribution to the community. We thank you kindly, madam.
We now have Dr. Usha George, Professor and Academic Director at the Ryerson Center for Immigration and Settlement, who will be delivering the keynote address. Dr. George is the former Interim Vice President of Research and Innovation and Dean of the Faculty of Community Services. She moved to Ryerson in 2006 from the Faculty of Social Work at the University of Toronto, where she had been the Professor and Associate Dean. Dr. George won the 2011 The Professional Female Award from the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce and the 2015 Errol Aspivig Award for Outstanding Academic Leadership from Ryerson University. Today, Dr. George will be speaking on the topic of gender equality today for a sustainable future tomorrow. Over to you, madam.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Thank you for the very kind introduction. I'm extremely delighted to be here to participate in the International Women's Day celebrations of the Dancing Damsels. Without a long introduction about women's inequality and so on, I just want to kind of quickly mention that we women have come a long way. While we celebrate our journey towards a more equitable future, we have to recognize that globally, gender inequality is a fact of life for millions and millions of women. In the interest of time, let me just highlight just a few facts from Canada. For every dollar men make, women earn an average of 76.8 cents. The gap is wider for women who are Indigenous, living with a disability, racialized, or newcomers. 15.5 months is how long it takes a woman to earn what a man earns in 12 months. Women with the same experience, socioeconomic and demographic background earn approximately $7,200 less annually than their male counterparts. These are just a few figures around women's inequality, even in a very progressive country like Canada. Now, the COVID have exacerbated the situation, as we know. Women were particularly vulnerable and very much impacted by COVID. Of course, there was increased risk of gender-based violence, and there were incidents of increased gender-based violence. There was economic stress because unemployment affected women the most, particularly immigrant women and new immigrant women. Then there was an increasing burden of caregiving and housework. And of course, there is reduced access to support services. Now, so instead of going through, in going through all of this, we recognize the vulnerable position that women could be in. In fact, someone commented that all the accomplishments we have had so far is all washed out in the COVID pandemic session. But in any case, we can't lose hope. We have to keep working. Now, we know that people experience different barriers depending on many elements of their identities, whether it is about their race, their gender, their sexuality, their identity, or ability, and age. So this whole notion is called an intersectional approach. And an intersectional approach to feminism and pursuing gender equality means that we try to understand the many ways different women are affected by barriers and discrimination that go beyond their gender. So we all know that. We talk about women on the whole being, suppressed by patriarchy, but then there is, racialized women, indigenous women, older women, all of this is together counted as what is called intersectionality. The UN Sustainable Development Program talks about women's achievement, women's gender equality. In fact, its goal number 5 is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Gender inequality persists worldwide, as I said before, and depriving women and girls of their basic rights and opportunities happen all the time. Achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls will require more vigorous efforts, including legal frameworks to counter deeply rooted gender-based discrimination that often results from patriarchal attitudes and related social norms. For example, I'll come to that later. While we may not see true gender inequality in our time or in our children's lifetimes, if each of us commit to taking one small step towards gender equality, promoting action on a regular basis, the ripple effects can be enormous. For example, Mary talked about the number of women and girls who are impacted by the work of a small organization called Dancing Damsels. So just imagine that if we were to do this on a regular basis with many organizations, changes can be truly exceptional. The ripple effects can be enormous, and it will lead to positive changes, not only for women and girls and gender diverse people living today, but for all people, all who are to come in future. We can impact gender equality, or we can build towards more a gender equitable society through a number of ways, whether they are at the macro level, at the meso level, or the micro levels. For example, at the macro level, we can introduce legislation and policies to ensure that women's rights are safely guarded and they have access to resources. For example, in Canada, we have the employment equity legislation at the federal level. We have legislation to prevent domestic violence. We have legislation to ensure, or we have practices at the federal level that ensure that women have equal space in all parts of society. Now, at the same time, we could all be saying, okay, well, these are big steps. So what do I do? I mean, as a simple single woman or as an individual, what can I do? Or how will it change things? So I just wrote down a few small suggestions that we can implement to kind of make minor changes. And it is all through these minor changes of somebody being dissatisfied with the situation, and which kind of being expressed and finding a solution, and all of that snowballing happens all the time. And so I'm just talking about small steps, but extremely important ones. One of the steps that I would always argue is share the care. What I mean is that, okay, we have always heard that a woman's work is never done. Those of us who are mothers, who are working outside, who are doing both the jobs, we know what that means. Women take on 3 times more unpaid care and domestic work than men. That is time and energy taken away from women to advance their careers, to earn more money, and to enjoy leisure activities. So, what do? It's important to encourage fathers to take parental leave to play an active role in care work, and also to play an active role in the regular care work within the family. Number 2, demand an equal work culture. From discriminatory hiring practices and sexual harassment to the gender wage gap, women face a full roster of challenges when it comes to the workplace. And those of us who are working in outside the home, are very, very familiar with this. I know a woman who single-handedly fought for 12 years for her rights, for a full-time job, for equal salary, and for a fair assessment of her performance. 12 solid years. She did not, she did not leave the job. She sat there, did her job, and then demanded these things and got them done. So we can all make those kinds of demands. I mean, if they are fair, if they are that can be done. The third one I want to mention is call out sexism and harassment. Identify microaggressions and use gender neutral language. Any one of us who pay attention to the popular discourse and the terminology that is used, we can see that there is a movement towards gender neutral language. So it is not an actress anymore, it's just actor. It is not mankind anymore, it's humankind. So that way, sort of increase your vocabulary to actually bring in more gender neutral language, and also be able to identify language which is kind of offensive to women. And start by calling out any inappropriate or stereotypical behavior in a safe and respectful manner. When it comes to engaging in conversation, learn the facts, so that the next time someone makes a statement like, oh, women have it very easy, oh, women can always get this done, they are always favored by the courts, things like that, you can then eloquently squash that misinformation in its tracks. So know the facts and learn all of that. If you witness harassment, speak up and step up. Get the help of others if you feel unsafe to do so. Take the time to listen to the survivors and ask how you can support. In almost all our workplaces, there are human resources, individuals who actually are able to interpret rules and regulations for us. There are sexual harassment officers and so on. So in a most safe way, without jeopardizing your career, you can actually bring some changes in your workplace if you see harassment, whether it's verbally or physically or both. Whether in your friendship or relationship within your family, foster an environment where boys and men also feel safe expressing their emotions. Let them know their feelings are valid and give them the opportunity to share. So, as I said before, women's rights are not only about women. it goes to everyone at the same time. So we need to actually make sure that men don't get intimidated by our expressions of our rights. Exercise your political rights. That's the fourth point or step I want to talk about. I mean, it does not require much explanation. We have a right to vote. Just go and express your political opinion for and in favor of candidates who have a track record of supporting and creating and implementing around gender equality. And we make sure that this is not done just municipally, provincially, or federally, but anywhere you can. Promote women or even men who actually have a female sort of, what do I say, a gender-based agenda, we could say. Then the final one I want to talk about is commit to women's causes. Just like you said in the case of Dancing Damsels, 9 years ago when this idea came to you, there was something that you had in mind, a vision that you had. So we have lots of women's causes that we can get behind. So I would encourage everyone to think of think of a cause, think of causes that you want to support so that women's equality will move forward step by step, slowly, one step at a time. Collective action can operate at at every level. Nothing is too small, as I said. And the first step is showing up. Sometimes there are meetings or there are town halls that talk about some of these issues and acknowledge that, and make sure that you make your presence felt there by showing up and definitely supporting these causes. And last but certainly the least, take ownership of the fact that gender equality is everyone's issue. So I'm sure not even the most patriarchal figures do not want to see an unhappy mother, an unhappy wife, an unhappy daughter. So it is for everyone that this women's equality is an issue. So if you are and sometimes people think, that's not my issue because I am fine. I have a good job. I'm respected. I'm in a position. That's okay. Okay, fine. If you have a privilege, if you are in a privileged position, make sure that you acknowledge that privilege and acknowledge the fact that not everybody is as privileged as you are. And so use your privilege and speak up and speak out for gender equality. Just my concluding statement is to remember Hillary Clinton in 1995. She attended the International Women's Conference in Beijing. And she said, women's rights are human rights. So it's just not for only women, it's for the entire humanity. Thank you very much.
That was such an inspiring address, Dr. George. Thank you so much for providing insight on the intersectional approach to feminism and reminding us that each and every one of us can do our part and contribute towards the goal of gender equality. Dancing Damsels is honored to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.